So, hello and welcome to the Seven Figure Builder Show. My name is Julie Baranek, founder of Seven Figure Builder, where we help high achieving business owners save time in their schedule every single week by implementing marketing automation to grow and scale their business to seven figures and beyond. And today I'm here with my friend Kristen Miller. Hey, Kristen.
Hey, I'm glad to be here today.
I'm thrilled to have you. So, for anyone who hasn't had the pleasure to meet you yet, can you tell me a little bit about what you do with your business?
So, I own a sales funnel design agency, and I'm also a business coach where I teach female entrepreneurs how to grow sales funnels using low ticket courses.
Awesome. So, we get to geek out in funnels today.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
That's great. So I think a lot of people have the misconception that if you build it, they will come, right?
Yes.
That really doesn't happen in reality. What have you
No.
find and what do you tell your clients?
I love that we're starting here because that is so key in all of this. It isn't build it and they will come. What I usually say is like we're building a machine, but a machine or like a car doesn't go anywhere unless you put gas in it. So that means you got to get the people in order for the machine to run. And that means traffic. So a lot of times that can mean organic traffic if you have a large audience. If you don't have an audience yet, that means running ads. But you have to put the gas in the machine in order for it to work.
Yeah, otherwise the machine just sits there and goes nowhere and looks
Yeah.
pretty,
Yeah.
but it doesn't do anything, right?
Exactly. So like building your sales funnel is half the job, right? Because then you actually have to tell people about it and get people into it.
Yes, you got to feed the machine.
Hmm.
So what do you recommend for people that are starting out, they just built their course and they're like, okay, now what? What do I do?
That's a great place to start because what I teach is both sides of it, creating your course and building your sales funnel. Because so many people, I believe, teach either one or the other, but really they go hand in hand because the type of funnel you're going to build depends on what type of course you're going to create and what the price point is. So I actually see a lot of people, no audience. They build a big course that they want to sell for thousands of dollars, think they can build a sales funnel and just sell it. Like you said, build it and they will come. But really, you have to think about what type of funnel you want to do beforehand. And that's why I really like the low ticket funnels because it helps people grow an audience at the same time as you're selling your course and getting your name out there, but you're making money and building your audience at the same time.
Absolutely. So do you suggest people with a low ticket item, say they built a big course, right? Do you have them start with like a piece of their course as a low ticket or just start with a low ticket and build their audience and then raise their price later? Like what is your strategy there?
Oh, so I would usually redo the bigger course to either take out like the small beginning section, and I wouldn't just do it like sell like module one. I don't think that really works because it really goes with the bigger course. And with the low ticket courses, you really have to solve a small specific problem. And usually module one doesn't do that. Usually that's the introduction, but you can revamp it, so I don't like ever starting from scratch. If you have something already created, you can definitely retool it to make it work for what you want to do. So I would usually have them create a lower ticket course for that funnel, either retooling what they have or building something small, which is like the first step that someone needs in order to get into that bigger course. But usually the bigger course is step two. So that can kind of be disheartening to some people who build that larger course beforehand and then realize, oh, I have to take a step back because I need an audience to sell it to. Or you can just retool it. And that's actually kind of exciting because then you get to expand what you've already done.
For sure. And I think that's so critical. And I know we hear it all the time, but as far as who is your ideal audience, who do you want to help, and who
Yes.
has the money to pay for whatever it is that you're trying to sell to people? And what is their need? Like really, when you're starting with that low ticket item, you want to start with what is their first need or what can you solve really easily to get
Mm-hmm.
them a win immediately, to get them that value so that you build that trust with them on a lower ticket item to
Mm-hmm.
then they say, okay, you helped me solve this. Now this is next. Can you help me with this issue? Right.
100%, 100%. And it's really key. And that's why looking at how are you going to sell it is hand in hand with what are you going to sell, because it all goes together. And so many times it's like disconnected. People either talk about courses or funnels, but really they go so closely together that you really need to think about them at the same time.
For sure. And I see so many people out there that they go through and they build their course and then they're like, crap, now I need to
Now
market
what?
it. And nobody told me how to do this. Like
Yes. Yeah. No
I
one told
wanted
me
to
how
get my
to sell
knowledge out
it.
there. Right? It's
Yeah,
supposed to just
exactly.
happen.
Yeah, and it's amazing because a lot of people who come into the course industry, they have big dreams and they have a big transformation that they want to give people, but you do have to break it down when you're building your business. You know, you can't just jump straight into the deep end to transform someone's life with $1,000 course. You really kind of have to work your way in.
Mhm. Yeah, I always liken it to dating, whether this is a good or bad analogy, but because some people don't follow this in their dating strategy, but you've got to get to know people, build their trust, and you don't like show up on the first date and say, "Hey, you want to marry me?" Right? Because they're going to
Yeah,
run out the door.
exactly. And I think there's some disconnect because you think about yourself, right? Would you see an ad for a course that's $2,000 and immediately hit purchase? No, you do some due diligence. You'd find out like what is this person actually selling, what's involved, and that takes time. That takes getting to know someone. Especially, I feel like the industry is changing so that people have less trust of people they meet on the internet. You know, so it
Yeah.
takes longer to get to know someone and trust them to really spend the big money.
Yeah, and it also is being a smart consumer. Like I think we want smart clients. We don't
Yes.
want just the gullible clients that will fall for anything. Like truly, you want quality
Yeah.
clients generally with whatever it is you're trying to provide for them. And if you are just getting the first person that says, "Hey, 2000 bucks, sure," and throw money, like it's more unrealistic than realistic, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, when you build your business with that low ticket course funnel, you build an email list and an audience of buyers. Number one, people who buy will buy again. And they're interested, right? They're not freebie seekers. They're not like, oh, maybe they already want what you're selling them and they're already there listening to you, which is one of the hardest things in growing an audience is that you can put a freebie out there and grow a list of 5,000 people, but are they listening to you? Are they opening your emails, right? So when you build it that way, you already have a group of people who like know and love you. And then it's easy, you know, and it makes business easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of strategy do you recommend to people for that launch? Like, do you do live launches? Do you do evergreen? Like what do you usually, where do you steer people with that?
For the low ticket courses, I like running ads because it's fast and I would say it's easy. You know, with organic traffic, it comes in spurts, it's not consistent. Whereas when you're running ads, it's consistent. You get like a certain number of people every day based on how much you're spending. And then you can make changes to the funnel as you need
Mhm.
to raise the conversions. But when it's organic, it comes, whenever it comes, when people are interested or when they see your posts. I do like to like live launch, if you have somewhat of an audience to begin with. But a lot of times the people who are building the low ticket funnels have like zero audience. So like there's no one to launch to. So then just jumping in straight with ads, I think is the right way to go because you're getting paid back right away, right? You're not putting out thousands of dollars on ads and then hoping that someone buys someday. That is where the mistake is and where people get burned and scared with running ads. But when you're running ads to a low ticket course, you're getting paid back. So it's not like it's not a bad situation.
Mhm. Now, is your goal with ads with your clients to then essentially break even on the low ticket item and then do an upsell later in the course to the higher ticket to then get the profit, or how do you do that strategically?
Well, that's a great question because it's like the iceberg effect, right? We're not just selling a low ticket course and then waiting, right? There are other things in the funnel. There are upsells in the funnel, and that's where your profit comes from right away. So, of course, the goal would be to break even, but the real goal is to make a profit, right?
Right.
And that's where the upsells come from. So, I usually have an order bump and at least one upsell in the funnel right away. And I believe that that's because of you have someone's attention, so you need to keep it, right? We're not just selling them something and saying goodbye. Maybe I'll email you in a few weeks, right? We are saying, okay, you got this. Well, how about this? You want that? Well, how about that? I think some people can take it to an extreme, and that's where some funnels can get a bad name. But An order bump and an upsell is totally fine. I think it gets a bad name when you go like again,
Mhm.
2+. But when you have their attention, like keep it, offer them the next thing.
Yeah. And when people have made that initial small purchase, they're so much more likely to then make an additional purchase, especially if they don't have to put in their credit card information again.
Yes.
So that's the beauty of when you're working in funnels, that you can have that low ticket item. They've now made the purchase, right? They put in their
Yes.
information. And then you can say, hey, like you mentioned, what about this and this? And they can just add it on to that initial purchase and not have to buy again. So they're in that buying cycle, they're in that buying mentality already.
Yeah.
And, you're more likely to then build on your sales.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not something that's off the wall. It's more of what they came for. It's like the next step. So it's not something where you're not offering them something off in left field. This is what they actually want. So we're just offering it to them. They don't want it, they don't have to take it.
Mhm. I think that's critical though, that people make sure that there is that connection between those upsells, because you can
Yes.
very quickly irritate people, irritate your customers of like, well, why would I want that? I'll just
Yeah.
go away. And then they jump out of the funnel and now they're just annoyed at you, right?
Yeah, that is so true. And it can kind of be a little difficult of like, what is the next thing? What is aligned to it? Because I always say this about like fitness and nutrition, like they are similar, but different. So someone who's coming in for nutrition advice is may or may not would want fitness advice after that. You might think that from the outside, oh, they go together, but do they really, is that what they came there for? So that's where like some nuances come into play. And that's something that you can look at if you have a funnel that's not quite converting. Like, are the products really lined up, or am I kind of taking them off into a different topic?
Mhm. And how can people figure that out, right? Like we're not mind readers, but how can we find that out about our clients? What do they actually want?
Well, you can do a lot of market research, like in Facebook groups, I think is the best way to do it, just to listen to what people are saying. You can also do like SEO research to find out what people are asking for. But then as you go, you'll learn more about your specific customers and what they want based on like what they're buying. And then more specifically, looking at the data, right? So when you're running your funnel, it's not just set it and forget it. You turn it on, and then I like to look at the data at least weekly to see like how many people are landing on the page, how many people are converting for the main product, the order bump, the OTO, and then make decisions on that. So if you get people coming in and buying the first product, but they're not buying the OTO, there's definitely something wrong there. Maybe it's the wrong message. Maybe you just need to change a headline, or maybe it is the wrong product, but the numbers will tell you if it's working or not.
For sure. And do you have a specific platform that you recommend for your clients or that you use a lot?
I do use ClickFunnels and Kartra a lot. But really, there are so many new platforms these days. Really, the key is that they have those certain features, because there are more platforms out there now. There are some platforms that don't have those key features, like you said, um, an upsell where you don't have to put your credit card number in again. That's definitely a key feature to look for. And having the shopping cart built in, that's a key feature to look for, because not every platform allows you to do these upsells. And that's really so important in building the profit, especially if you're running ads, that like I wouldn't go with a platform that you can't do upsells on.
For sure. Yeah.
That's a make or break question.
Yeah. And that's really where your profit ends up coming in, is when you can do those upsells and then see those conversions for sure.
Yeah. So like I wouldn't run traffic to just a $27 offer. It has to have those upsells. And that's why it's kind of like the iceberg effect, because if you're just looking from the outside, you see someone putting out a $27 course and seeing them like grow their audience and make a ton of money, but like you don't see what happens on the back end unless you're actually clicking through and making that purchase in the funnel. So those are definitely things that you need to have in the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about organic traffic and, market research and talking to people. And
Mhm.
that's so critical when we're doing and building these courses and building the structure. I find personally is just talking to people. And when I'm
Yeah.
doing organic marketing and just, talking to people in the DMs and the groups, getting their feedback and being receptive to their feedback and what their
Yeah.
questions are, that if somebody asks you a question, there's a very high likelihood that like 50 other people have that same question. So
Exactly.
you want to take a look at your program or your FAQs or your material, your content, say, okay, how can I address this going forward? Right? Because
Mm-hmm.
somebody else for sure has had that question if somebody actually verbalizes it.
100%. And not just like market research from like other people, but also market research from your customers as they're coming through, because you're going to get questions on the ad. You're going to get questions in chat, email, however. Every time someone asks a question, go put that in your FAQs, right? Because like if
Totally.
someone had that question, other people do too. So it's like it's not set it and forget it, but it's also not done, especially in the very beginning. You're going to be updating your sales page based on the questions that you get. You're going to be updating your course based on the responses from your customers. Like you could think that you've answered everything, every single question someone could have. And then someone comes to you with like this off the wall question. And you're like, I never even thought of that, you know? Or maybe they can't find something and you're like, it's obviously here, but they can't find it. So it's just move
Yeah.
things around. So you always have to like, it's never done, right? You always have to make changes to it afterward.
Yeah, and it's so critical to ask for that feedback and not be afraid to hear the answers. I think so often we're so close to the material, and I speak for myself in this too, that we don't see what we don't see, right?
Yeah.
And when people come back with feedback, if you're not getting negative feedback, but you're asking for it and actively soliciting for it, that's great, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you need to ask for both positive and negative feedback to make sure that you're constantly improving and put our egos to the side,
Yeah.
that it's not personal, it's their needs that we're after, that we're trying to help our customers make progress and, grow value within their business. And the more we can help them and the more clear we are in the value we're delivering, the more it's beneficial for us, right? It's going to
Mm-hmm.
grow our business and we're going to become more profitable because we're providing that value. But if you never ask and you never are willing to improve and you're just holding on so tightly to this is my program and this is what it is no matter what, you're not going to make those steps forward, but you have to open
Yeah.
yourself up to that.
Yeah, it's definitely hard, especially when you hear negative feedback for like the first time. And it doesn't even have to be like negative feedback, but just, feedback sometimes can be hard because these are your babies. Like your course is your baby. You put your heart and soul into it. And the first time when someone says, it's not for me, it's so hurtful. It
Yeah.
just hurts, but they don't mean it that way. It's just not for them. So yeah, you absolutely have to ask for feedback and then get those testimonials because you may get like amazing responses as well. And adding that to your sales page is going to help it too.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I love personally adding in automation to then
Mhm.
ask those questions on an automated cadence that as soon as you buy it or as soon as you complete it or as soon as you complete lesson 3 or
Mhm.
whatever makes sense in your course, to send that questionnaire out, to send the email out to your clients asking for that feedback. Are you
Yeah.
getting the value you need? Is it making sense? What is your experience? And then you can incorporate that into what you're offering.
Mhm. And I found that offering a little gift with it is a way to get those responses back because, people are busy, they may love it, but maybe they just don't have time to hit reply or give you a testimonial. With my product, the Get It Together Girl system that I sold a few years back, I asked for testimonials and I actually offered like this small magnet. When they gave me a testimonial, I would just pop it in the mail. So it cost me like, well, at the time it was like 30 cents a stamp. Now it's more.
Yeah.
But it was so easy and it was very easy to get those feedback requests and testimonials because I was giving them something in return, and it doesn't have to be something big, it could be something small. But you kind of have to do that in order to get sometimes those responses.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're bargaining for their time. Like you're not
Mhm.
you're not bribing them. Like
Yeah.
it's important to keep it in perspective, but like you need somebody's time and attention to complete that testimonial. Like people have great experiences, but as we all know, bad experiences travel faster than good experiences. So people
Hmm.
need to take the minute and the brain space to say, "Oh yeah, this was awesome. Let me, fill it out and send it back to her." So that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Because people are so busy these days. They don't have time to just do it for nothing.
Which on that note, you want to make sure if you're not getting your response back from people, don't be afraid to ask more than once. Like, you don't want to hound them, of course,
Yeah.
but don't be afraid to ask a second time for that testimonial, and people will often get to it. Cause a lot of times I know myself, I see something, I'm like, yep, I want to do it. Or I answer it in my head. I
Yeah.
didn't actually hit send. So then I
Yeah.
need to go back, and it wasn't that I didn't want to provide it. I just didn't get around to it yet.
And that's a nice way because you can automate it. Like you said, you could send an email out, you could put it in your course area as a little request. You can kind of like do it in a couple different places so that it's not so repetitive too.
Mhm. Absolutely. So your story is not the typical one, right? You want to tell us how you got started and what got you into this space?
Well, I started out in 2014 with like a parenting blog, and then I started getting into sales funnels and courses. But I did it for other people. And then in 2019, I created my Get It Together Girl system, and I put that into a funnel and I ran ads directly to it because at that time, my parenting blog was kind of dead. I hadn't touched it for a while, so I didn't have an audience to launch to, but I knew that I wanted to launch it and have my own funnel. So I launched it directly to ads. And so that's how I know that this works because I've done it myself. And I sold over $100,000 in less than a year. So that is a great, not only like a testimonial to this process, but it was super fun at the time too.
For sure. Yeah. To see your baby
Yeah.
explode in front of your eyes is super exciting.
Yeah, yeah. And so when people learn from me about sales funnels, like they have my like been there, done that type of experience. So I'm not just like regurgitating things that I've heard from other people. Like this is the stuff that I've learned on the front lines.
Yeah. And as you were learning, did you find that you were like funnel hacking, that you were, learning what other people were doing, or how did you learn?
So I had a mentor who taught me sales funnels and I was in her mastermind at the time. And then I learned as I went, so I did it all myself, everything, I built it myself. And then I learned as I went. So I learned how to build a sales funnel, but like growing it and customer service on the back end,
Mhm.
I learned as I went. And that's a really powerful process because you do learn all the ins and outs.
Yeah, totally. And for those that don't know what funnel hacking is, it's basically buying the products of other people's funnels to see their whole experience. Because to your point with the iceberg, like you only
Yes.
see what's on the outside. You don't see the whole architecture and the whole system that they have behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know personally, I've learned a ton just by experiencing other people's systems. And like, I'm very methodical and try to analyze, okay, well, they did this and then they did this. And, very logical of like, okay, that makes sense. And then picturing what that system is as much as I can tell,
Mm-hmm.
right, from the outside. But you learn a ton from people when you just experience what
Yeah.
it is, that they've actually built.
I wouldn't say that I'm a funnel hacker, but I would say that I love buying courses. So it's more like
By
I
proxy.
buy things because I just love them. And then I'm such a marketer that like I see what's going
Mhm.
on and like I'm looking at everything. It's kind of like when my husband, who's a restaurant manager, goes out to dinner and he's looking all around the whole time and he sees like the back end of things,
Right.
from the manager's perspective. I see the funnel from the marketer's perspective. But yeah, I love buying things as well as selling things.
Yes, that's part of the fun. In your marketing, do you have any specific benchmarks that you tell people for their ads, for conversion rates, for traffic? Like, what should they expect?
Yeah, so there are definitely benchmarks, and some of the benchmarks are lower than people would expect. So it's something that knowing this in advance is really important because then you don't feel disheartened, right? So
Right.
when you're running ads, number one, the ad cost is going to be pretty much around the price of the low ticket course. And that's why it's so important to have those upsells, right? Because it's not like a couple dollars per sale. You're spending like $20 per person, but you're getting the money back from the other upsells that you have. And then conversion rates are like between 1 to 3% for cold traffic, right? So that can be disheartening when someone thinks, oh, I had 100 people go to my sales page, but only one person bought. And I'm like, 1%,
Mhm.
that's normal, but it doesn't feel normal if you're brand new to it. You think that, well, one person bought, that's terrible. So I
Yeah.
think knowing some of those stats ahead of time is really important because you don't want to stop going. That's the thing that, ruins it for so many people, is that they get started and then they stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, when you start ads in Facebook, for example, there's that whole learning phase where it takes time for the ad to learn who you're talking to and who's responding and to optimize behind the scenes.
Mhm.
How long do you find that learning phase lasts but by the time you finally get it optimized and like up to speed?
That really differs between different people, different markets, and also like kind of where you're starting from. Like if you're starting from absolute scratch, it's going to take longer. If you're starting with maybe you've sold things in the past and you have some type of list that Facebook can go off of, you're going to get a bigger jump into it, right? And then sometimes things just hit. I've likened Facebook ads to like slot machines and playing the lottery before, because it's kind of like that. You try different things and sometimes they hit fast and sometimes they hit slow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always find that challenging with ads because you're trying different creatives and you're not sure which one hits. Obviously, once you get one that does hit, it's very easy to turn up that dial and to
Hmm.
crank up the volume, right? So that you can get more traffic through that and it's obviously working. But it can definitely be discouraging when you're trying different creatives or trying different,
Yeah.
audiences and not seeing the results that you want. But
Yeah, exactly. It's easier when you're less emotionally tied to it. So like running ads for someone else is a lot easier than running ads for yourself
totally.
because you're not as emotionally tied to it. It's not your baby.
And you're not
Um,
watching those dollars tick by every single dollar. I still don't have somebody and getting more
yeah.
anxious as you go.
Yeah. So you do have to kind of like take yourself away from it as much as you can and look at it as this is a business, this is a machine. We're putting gas in the machine. Maybe gas is expensive today, and you just have to let it work, let it do
Yeah.
its magic.
Yeah. And I think with that too, you've got to, when you make a decision to go with ads and you figure out your strategy, obviously, ideally working with somebody who's done it before. So you're not
Hmm.
guessing, but you got to pick a course and go with it.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you go in, and I've been guilty of this too, when I'm running ads, if I see things and I'm like, oh, but I got this idea and this idea, and like there's so much I think I could do. But every time you change that ad, you're
Yeah.
going back into the learning phase, which then is stalling out your productivity of that ad. So you may not
Hmm.
actually realize the actual, effectiveness of what you're doing and kind of be sabotaging yourself because you're constantly tweaking things. So
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah. It's
best
definitely
to,
not good to like touch the ad too much. Like maybe make a copy and try something. But I
yeah.
definitely think there is like definitely a gray area between not enough and too much. Right. Because I've had clients who ran ads and, they spent $100 and didn't make any sales. And we're like, this is off, turn it off. Then I've had clients spending thousands of dollars and not getting any sales and just letting it go. And I'm like, no, no, turn it off. Not working.
Right. Something needs to be tweaked.
Yeah. So usually, I mean, 100+ people going through your sales page and your funnel is a good marker of like what's working and what's not. And the more people that you get through and it's not working, you need to make changes.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's where it's good to have an expert to bounce it off of to say, okay, what's not working? Because
Hmm.
if they're clicking on your ad, but they're not converting, chances are it's not the ad. Either there's a disconnect from the ad to the landing page, or once they get to the landing page, they're not seeing what they wanted. And so the issue is not actually the ad. The issue could be with your landing page.
Hmm. And that's where all the numbers come in. And that's why you have to track like all the numbers. The numbers will 100% tell you where the problem is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I like to geek out in the numbers.
I know, me too.
For sure. So what would you say is the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome in your business?
The biggest challenge that I've had to overcome in my business is definitely mindset all along the way. Personal development and mindset goes along with entrepreneurship like 100%. Because when you're pushing your business, if any little mindset thought gets in the way, it will stop you. So it's not like one little thing, it's like mindset overall. And I don't think enough people give it the value that it really has, especially in entrepreneurship, that your mindset can stop you from your success.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's so many issues with mindset, both from business, from money, and from all sorts of things that, have been taught to us our entire lives, that those are the truths that we know, and they
Hmm.
can be very empowering or they can be huge stumbling blocks depending on what we've actually, embraced into our life.
Hmm. Yeah, and you're constantly reaching new levels,
Yeah, totally. So what can people expect from you next? Are you still running your program, or what are you offering right now?
So I am offering my program on, how to create and sell sales funnels and courses because like they go hand in hand. So I have to do it hand in hand. So I do teach people that. And coming up next for me, I'm opening up a membership and relaunching my signature course on how to create that low ticket course and funnel.
Awesome. And where can people find you online? We'll have the links down below.
KristenMiller.me is my website, and I'm at Hello Kristen Miller on all the social medias.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we will definitely have all the links there so we can track you down, Kristen.
Awesome.
And if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
I would say dream big and keep going no matter what.
Love it. It's very empowering and so true. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate you being on today. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.